the line, where quite often a lot of cavalry action did occur during the war. At the beginning of the war, Prince Rupert of the Rhine took over the Royalist cavalry, but unfortunately he didn't have full control of his officers, and quite often they got carried away, and they ended up miles behind the enemy's lines, and they had to be called back to fight. A good cavalry horse at that time cost about £30, so they were quite well looked after. And the young nobility, quite often the officers of the cavalry, and the local men who had their own horses were press ganged into service with their local squire. And after the battle, I've seen many a rider put on the floor if the horse doesn't like it and leave the field, hence the need for security. Barrier between us and the battle. But the dumping of the rider doesn't happen very often, I need to say. When a horse meets a regiment of foot, they go into what is called colloquially as a hedgehog or end, which is very sharp. No horse is going to impale itself on that. No matter how good a rider you are, is immediately returned to our powder master, where it is kept overnight and may be used the next day, or taken back to our storage facilities. A lady, of course, can also be a cavalry officer or rider. All the equipment that you see people use today is owned by the participants. We equip ourselves out of our own pockets, and we make our way to events like this at our own expense. Everyone you see is a volunteer, and no one is paid for their participation. That's to die, although there are various shapes. As in blue, you saw an awful lot of regiments in blue, because the person who brought up the regiment to fight on either side has to pay for their own coats. So he's not going to go out and buy the black cloth, which is very expensive and was a sign of wealth. Not necessarily that you were a Puritan or Protestant. It was a matter of showing off your wealth rather than your religion at that time. You put them in blue. It was cheap and easy, and it looked quite nice. Well, I think so, because my regiment's in blue normally until it went into the new model army. The women who were following the army were actually the wives of the soldiers. They weren't all women of easy virtue, and they were there because they couldn't stay at home without a breadwinner, and they would follow the army and help keep their husbands alive and fed. And when
You nasty fellow, you sir!
in St Mary's Street.
In the Civil War, that's 300 odd years ago, little boys wore dresses until they were 6. And you're still a bean in a doctor. And on your 6th birthday, you had a big birthday party, and you got your first pair of breeches, they call it. All right. And there you are. That's a little boy going through the war.
At the beginning of the British Civil War, not many of our fightmen actually carried swords, but they're more of a hindrance in these battles, as they fight mainly with pikes rather than swords. We display on the battlefield the basic sorts of pikes, halberds, muskets. But if you go go to any of the museums, especially if you go to Leeds and see the armour collection there, you'll see the swords have guns integrated into them, so you shoot your opponent and then you go up and stab him if you've missed. As I said earlier, the musketeers weren't very accurate. They have halberds, pikes and swords where extra blades pop out to the side with a flick of a switch. I'm not sure if in Leeds they actually have an example of this, but in the 16th century, the Doge of Venice actually had a machine gun made. That is a cylindrical vessel with barrels around it, matchlock, and you just twisted it and fired each one in return. So it wasn't a 19th century invention. In fact, my regiment was more or less disbanded at this time because we wouldn't conform to what Cromwell wanted in the Parliament. So after about 1847-48, my regiment, the Earl Stanford, which is a West Country regiment, based mainly in the Ross area, who was commanded by a very famous colonel at that time, an Edward Mastick, who ended up as the governor of Ireland. We just sort of disappeared from view because we wouldn't. You could have families literally divided, one fighting for Parliament and the other for the king, got the upper hand, we're pushing them straight back towards the left-hand side of the field. It looks like there may be a slaughter if they don't stand and fight, because it's very easy to decimate a retreating or tactically withdrawing army. It's actually safer to be in the middle of one of those fight pushes where you've got about 40 men pushing than to be in a rugby scrum. We reach after we take the colonies. The horse regiment and friends have been in the Clown's Castle, showing what life was like in the 17th century. And the living history at the Clown's Castle will be open tomorrow morning between about 11 o'clock and about 4:30 if you'd like to go and see them there.
Hello.
big canopies are wadding, biodegradable wadding and taking glass. At the end of the battle, do not go on the battlefield because their neighbours like carry their line around and stop taking things up. And they're seen there for a while. It's rather like having fireworks. You don't go back until the next day. Ladies and gentlemen, speak the newborn army may actually be winning the day. Equipment and clothing wasn't wasted, it'll be recycled by others. It steals the useful things that they can use. I think the battle's entering its final phase now. We see a lot of dead out. And the Scots being pushed right back.